Hello, I'm Thomas Van Dyke, your host for The Circle of Care. This is the second in our series of informative programs geared especially toward you, the caregiver in our community, taking care of our loved one at home. Previously, on our first show, we learned about the Manatee County Caregiver Forum and what this dynamic group is doing in the community to provide support for caregivers. Our viewers heard about the free annual Circle of Care event sponsored by the Manatee County Caregiver Forum, which is designed to provide information and encouragement to family, friends, and neighbors who offer caregiving to their loved ones. That third annual event was a success. Today we want to focus on another important subject, caregiver burnout and the need for self-care. Let me introduce my guests for this episode. Cynthia Palmieri. Cynthia Palmieri is chairperson of the Manatee County Caregiver Forum and a geriatric care manager for CPA Secure Aging. Welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you, Thomas. It's so good to be here again.
And also Brenda Bates, LPN for Alistar and Patient Advocate Corporation, and is also a member of the Manatee County Caregiver Forum. Welcome, Brenda.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so let's begin to try to get a better understanding of the definition of the word caregiver. Brenda, can you help us out with that? What would be the best definition for our audience on what we're talking about today? Who is the caregiver?
The caregivers we're addressing today are the people that have voluntarily or involuntarily found themselves in a situation where there's someone that needs some care, and they've elected to pursue that, taking care of them, whether it be family members, friends. A lot of times we see the sandwich generation of a parent, someone like my age, and the children caring for them all at the same time. So it's someone who's chosen to be that main person for that, the loved one, to care for them.
Okay, so I heard it can be involuntary or voluntary, so sometimes these things are thrust upon us. And I think, as I understand best, we're talking about a non-professional. We're talking about anyone who can give care, correct?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you. So, Cynthia, tell us a little bit more about what it's like to be a caregiver, because on a previous program, I remember that you had mentioned that you provided home caregiving.
I did, Thomas. It was a situation that was thrust on me when my father-in-law died. I have to admit it wasn't something I was accepting and willingly taking on in the first place, but I did have a tremendous amount of love for my in-laws and knew that they were incredibly good people. And when my father-in-law died, my mother-in-law was 88 years old and had not worked out of the house at all and did not have any skills beyond being cared for by her family members. And we did take her into our home, and we cared for her for 2 years before we did place her into an assisted living facility where she remained until the end of her life. But we did find it to be an incredibly delightful thing to be able to do and provide care, but also a very stressful time.
I can see. So there's the good and the bad with that. Okay, I think I'm beginning to see the difference in what we want to talk about here today, because in the sense caregiving can be done by anyone, and it's out of the goodness of their heart when they volunteer to this, and this role of these unsung heroes that we have here in the county and everywhere across the country. So for our topic with caregiver burnout and the need for self-care, you might be saying that we're talking about that responsibility that has fallen upon their shoulders, and that can sometimes be a heavy responsibility. Cynthia, once again.
I like the way Dr. Jamie Heisman speaks about it in his caregiving talks and books. He calls them family first responders. And so often that's what we find, is that all of a sudden the care is needed and we jump into that role because we are the persons available, and we don't always understand what it's going to take to provide that care in the beginning. It evolves over time how the care is handled.
Okay, so now we've got 911 coming from the families and neighbors and friends.
Yes.
And that's very important, because these are the people who do step up. Okay, so I guess this leads us right into the topic itself. And as we want to spend the next several minutes talking about what our audience at home wants to know is what caregiver burnout is for them and the need for self-care. Let us see what we can do with that as far as talking about burnout. Brenda, and I know also I had a chance to talk with you a little earlier, and I know that you also have been a caregiver for a family member. What are the symptoms of burnout?
I think the constant fatigue, it starts kind of as the constant fatigue, which can actually affect your memory, can affect your relationships. There's a lot of anger sometimes at the situation that you feel like it's being forced on you. There's resentment towards family members that don't help or don't seem to understand what it entails and what you're doing. And there's a lot of guilt that you feel like you're not providing enough care. And as the more you care, it seems like the person you're caring for needs more care. And then the resentment builds because you just feel like you're being taken advantage of sometimes.
All right, so I'm hearing that there are a range of emotions that take place inside someone who's decided to become a caregiver for a family member. Cynthia, speaking personally and professionally, does everyone get all these symptoms?
I think that they range in a variety of ways. Anger can come a little bit now. It can come a lot more later. But I found that while I was a caregiver that it would wane.
What is the anger feeling? Can you give us an example?
It's a resentment. It's a resentment. I can't get out. I'm hearing bickering in my home that I didn't hear before. I have to prepare a meal because we have someone else. We can't just go pick out of the refrigerator. We need to actually prepare something nutritionally sound. I know that when I began the caregiving role, I actually put on 30 pounds that I've never been able to get off. They came on, and it's just been a challenge to ever try and take them off.
So the stress of the situation has gone back to you.
Yes.
On you.
Yes.
Is it always that bad?
No, I don't think it's bad at all because, I think that we begin, it's almost a grieving process that we begin. We grieve the things that we're giving up. We grieve the changes in the relationship between us and our family member, our loved one. But we also have positive moments. There were things when, I remember one of the most special times we had, and it's almost funny to say now, but was when my mother-in-law and I would give her a shower. And we would go and I'd say, okay, Mom, strip. No, I'm not gonna look. You go the other way. And it did become a time when she and I would laugh. And we would get joy out of that period of time. She had a very specific method that she used, specific soaps that she used and towels, and she had to have small towels. She was a small person. She was 4'10" and had to have washcloths for some of that process.
Sounds like you were giving her a trip to the spa,
yeah.
And that was a reward for you too.
I thought it was because it was a bonding period. It was not a negative period. We knew that it had to be done, and it was something we made sure her hair was all clean and pretty, and I always used our Mickey Mouse term, are we all now clean and squeaky clean? And she used to laugh, and that would be a positive during that time. So there weren't all negative. We would sit and watch TV together, and I know that my father-in-law was Italian, my mother-in-law was Polish, and I remember the time I'm thinking, Mom, we'll do what you always did for Easter. We'll prepare babka, and we'll prepare the boiled eggs and the horseradish and the kielbasa, but she didn't remember how to make babka, and I couldn't find the recipe right off. So we kind of put that together, but we had fun in the kitchen. She was a marvelous cook, and she had given so much of that up.
Okay, so I'm hearing good and bad,
yes.
and there's a lot of reward from being there for the person that you love.
A lot of reward.
With that comes the anger, some of the resentment, some of the guilt feelings. Why does it happen, Brenda? Why does it have to be this way?
It's the circle of life.
Yes.
And we find ourselves being the caregiver for people that it was unexpected. Society has changed. There's different options for help, But I think most of us feel as a family member that we want to be there for them and take care of them, and that seems to be the first option we choose, is to be that caregiver.
Well, you introduced the feelings earlier. I heard guilt, and I heard resentment and anger, and I suppose despair. These are the negative side of caregiving, while there's all the goodness that's going on with the rewards of knowing that we're extending the life of someone that we love or helping a neighbor through. Can you tell me about these feelings? What's it like to experience them, and how do you manage those and not let on to the person you're caring for that reality is it's like this?
Well, what I think we found is that if you make a plan of action, make an action plan for yourself and figure out what it is you can and can't do. Different things. You need to find out who's willing to help you and what they're willing to do, and assign things that can be done by them. You know, not assign, but what we found is that family and friends want to help. And some people are scared to ask for help. They're scared to admit they need help. Mm-hmm. And so by people offering or finding out what they can do to help you, mm-hmm. to get organized and to take some of that responsibility off you and share the load with different professionals or non-professionals, friends.
Okay, so I'm hearing that the first step for our audience to know is you got to have some sort of action plan. You can't just get thrown into this and try to survive, because it's about survival if you don't. Mm-hmm. But the action plan, you said, included knowing who is there to help. Okay, so
resources in the community.
When is it time to ask for help?
I think you need to set, as Brenda has said, that you need to set that plan of action the day you become a caregiver. You need to set boundaries. I think boundaries are one of the most important things that we need to set when we're providing care for someone, because we do need to take time for ourselves. As is said in the book so often, take your oxygen first. We all know that there's a window of time when the oxygen drops in an airplane, and we have to quick get the oxygen mask on ourselves, because if we put it on our loved one first, which is our normal thought process, to put it on them to protect and provide for them, that what will happen so many times is that we'll have passed out in the meantime. And it is very important for us to take our oxygen first and then put the oxygen on that loved one.
So that very familiar scenario to most of us who've flown is that if we're traveling with a child or someone in need and that mask drops down, we need to be ready. We need to take our oxygen, get that breath of fresh air.
We do. We need to set the boundaries within, what we need to cope. We need to find ways of getting out. We need exercise. We need social contacts, any of the things that we would normally do, but we have a tendency to put those things on the back burner as we're providing for this person who has now become our priority.
And that's what you said happened to you. You felt you gained some weight during the experience.
Yes.
Apparently you weren't taking care of your exercise needs and eating correctly maybe and such. And okay.
And different people handle stress differently.
Yes.
So for a lot of people, it's weight loss. It's and you always feel like, well, I need to make a doctor's appointment, but I don't have time, and who's going to watch this person if I go to the doctor's appointment? So we self-neglect.
Okay. Self-neglect. And isn't that what's happening when we enter into caregiving, is we've noticed that the care recipient, the potential care recipient, is also undergoing self-neglect. So we can't have two people being the patient, can we?
We as the caregivers so often tend to rush in and give them the oxygen first and forget to do it for ourselves. So it is very important that we provide the care to that loved one, but we also need to provide the care for ourselves.
Okay, so I'm hearing what Cynthia's saying now. Tell me, Brenda, who can a person go to for help?
Manatee County has such incredible resources, whether it's not-for-profits and different agencies that can help, up to and including assisted living, and paid help, paid caregivers in the home, companions, CNAs that can actually help do activities of daily living.
Okay, so quickly, you said assisted living, and I know of nursing homes. Is that the same thing?
There's a difference. It's based on your functioning level, what level you would need, and it's assessed by different professionals, geriatric care managers.
So some patients at home, some care recipients at home that we may be caring for may be better in a different surrounding? Is that what I'm hearing?
Sometimes we need to look at the situation and see when there's a family that's burning out and there seems to be no relief, sometimes that's going to be an option. And people need to not feel guilty when they feel they've reached their limit, if that's an option.
And it's very hard not to feel that guilt feeling. I know that we reached that after 2 years of providing the care for my mother-in-law. My husband came in from mowing the lawn one day. He had retired and came in from mowing the lawn and found the house flooded. She had flushed the toilet and a washcloth had fallen in, and she had not seen that, and the entire house all the way out through to the kitchen was flooded. And we knew at that point it was no longer safe to have her in that environment because he was only outside mowing the lawn for a short period of time and just came in to check on something when he found the water.
Situation.
So at that point, we all reach different levels of that point, but we want to try and set up something ahead of time so that we're aware before we reach that point.
Okay, so that's the plan. Have a plan in mind.
Yes.
So there's help out there in the community of that we live in. It could be assisted living, skilled nursing. It could be home care. It could be getting some extra help there at home, couldn't it? And so
there's also respite care, where sometimes you feel maybe I just need a short break. If I could get 1 week away and just pull myself together and get that rest and that peace, then maybe it's something I can continue to do.
So respite, a break, may be the remedy that we're looking for to prevent caregiver burnout.
Right,
and it gets to be too much, because everybody needs a break.
Right, and there are different ways of doing that. You can get home companions in the home, and you can leave, or you can, there are many assisted livings here in Manatee County that provide the respite care where you can actually almost, like I told my mother-in-law, I was checking her into an assisted living. I'm checking you into a hotel, Mom. You're going to have your meals. That's right. And she really responded well to that. But what was wonderful is she's such a social person, and within a week period of time she had met a boyfriend. And so at 90 years old,
the social part,
that's
you had mentioned
exactly.
earlier social was
Social's
important
very
too.
important.
So there is a social experience created by that.
Yes.
Well, I can tell you that I have a family caregiver, care recipient in my household. I have my mother, and she's been there since 2008. And I am preparing to go on vacation. I've decided it's time to do it.
Good.
And we're going to take off. And even today, as we speak, I have my mother visiting the caregiver's home because we're going to let her stay in the paid caregiver's home for several days while I can finally get away.
Thomas, I want to ask you, is this 4 years that you have not had a vacation?
Yes. So it is one of those things that we do put things off, don't we? And we do get to a point where we know that we need to do something. Our spouses will let us know first, won't they?
Yes.
What is it like for our spouses? What are they going through?
Well, they go through pretty much the same thing that we do. I know we as women approach things so much more differently than men do. This was my husband's mother, and even though I loved her and wanted to provide care for her, he was much more emotionally involved because that was his mother, and he felt very torn so many times. He loved his mother very much, but on the other hand, he had just gone into retirement, and now she said to him one day right after he retired, "Now you can stay home and take care of me." And that was quite a shock to him to hear that, because that was not how he had planned to spend his retirement.
No.
And I think that day there was some anger involved, as he expressed to me, and we sat and talked about it, and we both agreed that, we believe very strongly in dignity to death, but we also believe that we need to protect ourselves and our relationship too. So that's where the boundaries came in.
And when you speak of boundaries, the first thing I'm thinking about too is privacy.
Yes. Yes.
Which goes along with intimacy and the sharing and social that we have with our friends and family and husbands and wives.
Right.
Okay. What books are out there, self-help tools that people can reach for?
If you go into the Manatee County Library, you're going to find an entire, I should say, room or floor devoted to self-help books. But I brought two today specifically. Take Your Oxygen First, and this is written by Dr. James Heisman as well as Dr. Marge Laird.
Okay, you mentioned his name earlier, right?
With Lisa Gibbons, is she provided care for her mother who had Alzheimer's, and the entire family was involved in that care. This is an excellent book. I've read it a couple of times just to get information out of that.
So that's one you would recommend to our audience?
Very much, very much.
Take Your Oxygen First by Dr. Jamie
Heisman and Rosemary Laird, Dr. Laird, who I've heard both of them speak.
Right.
And then also this Voices of Caregiver. This is an excellent book. When Dr. Jamie was here, he brought this book with him, and both of these books. But this is an excellent book that is written by people who have provided care for their loved ones, and some experience that they've had. So it's called
The Voices of Caregiving by?
Well, it's actually written, it's real stories written by real people from the Rosalind Carter Institute.
Okay.
I'm sure you've heard.
So people like our audience
yes.
have written in, and that's been captured. Okay, so there's some ideas. Now, also, you are both members of the Manatee County Caregiver Forum. I am too. And with that, there's a 4th annual program coming up soon. I imagine you're going to have more support there for people to come in and see and get help. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'm just so excited about it. The Manatee Aging Network started 4 years ago, decided that the Caregiver Forum would become a project of the Manatee Aging Network. And the Caregiver Forum bloomed that 4 years ago. And each year we have had wonderful guest speakers. We've had resources. We put together a resource manual, and the manual includes support groups. It includes home companion agencies, along with assisted living and nursing homes available. It's just an excellent, we have an all-day program. It's free for anyone who comes. We provide
I heard the best
meal.
part about
That's
it is
free.
the door prizes.
The door prizes.
And everyone is made to feel special for our unsung heroes.
Oh, we have an amazing amount of door
audience.
prizes, yes. Last year it was so exciting. We had a grand prize of a $500 gift card.
Oh, my word.
And we also had a beautiful portrait that was donated, and a woman had come up to me at one of the breaks and said, I would love to have that. That's so beautiful. And I know it's so hard to believe, but when her name was actually pulled for that door prize, and it was just an amazing thing. But you're right, door prizes are very exciting.
Okay, so for the folks at home, they know that they can get some self-help books at the library. There's a wonderful organization that's putting together once a year, at least this one event. Do you have any information, Brenda, about some of the key steps for self-care that you can tell us today?
Yes. We talked a little bit about the action plan, encouraging to delegate to others. Organize to make your life simpler. Look at what you can maybe eliminate that's not as necessary.
Okay, so organize to make life simpler. Okay, got
Take
it.
every opportunity to laugh.
We must laugh.
Take
okay.
every opportunity.
So enjoy this experience.
Embrace the memorable, rewarding times. Don't be afraid to communicate, either to your friends, family, or any of the support groups, multiple support groups.
So communicate frustrations, communicate feelings. That's not always easy to do.
No, we don't want to admit that we need help.
Right, but do it.
Yes.
Okay.
Because we all do it. And again, taking care of yourself, the physical exercise.
Okay, so basic needs. So basic needs are food, shelter, and clothing, exercise, spiritual needs,
yes,
relationship needs, self-esteem needs. Remember that hobby that we used to have, that golf course we used to go to, the favorite restaurant, the movies. We need
I
that,
actually
don't we?
did a scrapbook with my mother-in-law. We sat down and went through all her pictures and picked out things and we did a scrapbook together, but it was a good reliever for me as well during that period of time.
Okay. Well, we've covered a lot of information today. The good news is that we've learned more about this subject and the resources that are available. So with that, there's a website that our audience can go to, the Manatee County Caregiver Forum.org. And from there they can get more information, right? So if you didn't get a chance to copy down any notes here, I think you'll find a lot of resources there.
They can also see on that website some of the pictures from last year. We had some wonderful pictures from last year's forum.
I think we have that website on the screen right now so people can copy that down. Okay, well, to find out more then, go to www.manateecaregiverforum.org. Well, we've covered a lot of information. The good news is that to learn more about this subject and the resources available, you can go to their website or call the number that you find there for more information. Well, there you have it. So we're out of time for this episode. Our special thanks again to METV, and hopefully you'll continue to watch and learn more about the caregiving in the community throughout the year. I also want to thank our guests coming in here to discuss this important topic of caregiver burnout and the need for self-care. Thanks for joining us, and see us next time to learn more about the Circle of Care.